Hey everybody, this is Dan,
And this is Ron.
And this is Elizabeth.
and this is a nominee questionable movies, and welcome to 50 something episodes.
Yeah, I've
Uh,
lost track. I mean, I do remember every time that I put them together and publish them because they're sequential. It's not that hard. But yeah, I don't know. We're at like 57, 52, 5 something, 5 blank.
Today we're going to talk about a few things because Ron came over for a distanced porch projector hangout. I have a very old Epson projector that works very well still, and we put up a blanket and we watched some of the more rare, strange VHS tapes that I own, along with the movie Test Tube Babies and an episode of the Super Friends. So
With Test Tube Babies being the main feature.
the main feature at 53 minutes. So the first thing we watched was Los Angeles Lakers Just Say No anti-drug home video and song by winners for winners. That's the official. Usually when you're like cataloging this stuff, you go by the spine title. That is literally what's on the spine. Like 3 sentences.
3 sentences over 4 lines for something that never should have been made.
Right, and this is like 18 minutes long, so it's a very long title for a very short movie. Basically, this is a making of the anti-drug PSA rap video made by the Los Angeles Lakers in, I believe, 1987. You get to hear a lot of the team and the manager and the owner rap because they include the full "Just Say No" video at the end. For the first 14 minutes of the episode, it seems like everyone is drunk and or high.
Wait, wait, why do you say that?
Because they're all like, I mean, maybe not the wives. The wives seem kind of like, it's like weird that they speak as a collective, right? Like the one woman that's always speaking for, well, we Lakers wives, like it's a singular organism.
Uh-huh.
Like you could take the life of every Los Angeles Laker in 1987 and combine them to form Voltron, right?
And they all have that same like purse-lipped, big hair, 80s rich mom look.
Yeah.
Fake smile.
Right.
White tooth smile.
But whenever the Lakers themselves are talking about not doing drugs, they're like giggling constantly.
Oh yeah. How not just how high and drunk were they beforehand, was how high were they while performing the final song in front of that auditorium of hundreds of kids, telling them not to do drugs.
Some of them could actually rap.
Yeah, some of them actually could.
Like it wasn't as bad as like "Do They Know It's Christmas," which I think is the worst charity PSA single ever made.
A Christmas song for people who don't celebrate Christmas.
Right. Basically just saying like, hey, you live in another part of the world. You must be poor. Ergo, you do not know it is Christmas right now.
Yeah.
So decrees Bono and his army of, I guess that's the closest thing there was to a precursor to the Lil Dicky We Love the Earth video, which for anyone who hasn't seen that, that's the worst music video of the 2010s, possibly this decade too. It's like bad enough to be the worst, like the WOAT, the WOAT of 2 decades. It's that bad.
The WOAT. Oh, okay, got it.
Like the goat, but the woat. It's a thing. You heard it here first, folks. Coming at you.
I think what's like, obviously so terrible about the Christmas thing is like, it's like what you're just.
Which Christmas thing?
What you were just mentioning, the Christmas. Do you know that it's Christmas?
Oh, do they know it's Christmas?
Do they know it's Christmas? Like the presumption that, I mean, there's so many levels here, but it's like the presumption that like poor Christians are not going to have culture or something. Like, I don't know. It's just ridiculous.
You're talking about, do they know it's Christmas time?
Right.
Well, and also realize I just said, like, for people who don't celebrate Christmas, that's not true, because a very large portion of people in Africa are Christian. And
right.
Where was the famine at the time? This wasn't the famine in Ethiopia, was it?
When did this come out?
It was like 1983, I think. It was early 80s.
Okay. Oh, right. And We Are the World. Yeah. Okay. Then.
Yeah, We Are the World came after. I think it was 84.
Okay.
And then like We Are the World, I think was the Bob Geldof one, the one from the one with the guy from not Happy Mondays, the Boomtown Rats, the I Don't Like Mondays band. He got like his band kind of like sputtered out, but he realized he was really good at organizing rock star charity events, and that's pretty much all he does now.
Well, we got far off from the Lakers video, but
So I feel like this video is classic 80s cheese. 80s cheese. It's so surreal. It's like if you liked trading tapes back in the day, or you like finding like weird old shit, like something awful type shit, or not something awful. God, what's that YouTube channel where they just post like 3 or 4 minute clips of weird VHS tapes?
Oh,
maybe it is something awful. I forget. We can put a link when my brain fart ends.
Is this considered? So this is a video about the making of the campaign. Like, is this?
But it
considered...
also has the full music video at the end. I don't know if you were outside for that.
I think I was probably making drinks. I was doing drugs. But like, is this considered a documentary? Like, why would someone put this out? Like, why?
Documentary.
Yeah, that's just insane that like they felt it necessary.
And this isn't a particular. This is worth about $15, which means that they must have printed. This was probably a giveaway with something. Like if you bought some other tape, you could send in like shipping and handling and get this maybe. It's also one of those uncommon VHS tapes where it has a flap on the bottom.
I was noticing that. I was wondering if it like came untucked or something. That's so weird.
No, that's like 80s VHS tapes. Sometimes you'll find that. Sometimes it's ripped off. But this one, it's supposed to be part of the packaging because the yellow goes down to the edge.
Right.
But yeah, both
interesting.
Sorry, wait.
Oh, I just said interesting.
Well, so we have it's the marriage of two really popular things at the time. Just Say No was, I don't know if popular is the right word, was everywhere. You couldn't get away from it, and the Lakers were huge. Just Say No was huger.
Wait, so you like lived through this, right?
I did. I remember stuff like that happening. I don't remember that particular thing. But yeah, there were all these commercials for the anti-drug commercials, like the famous one with the this is your brain on drugs.
The egg.
The egg.
My mom used to reference that all the time.
Okay. Holds up the egg and says, "This is your brain," and then cracks it onto the frying pan and it starts sizzling. It's like, and that's your brain on drugs. I'm like,
delicious.
Whoa.
Maybe that's like a tagline we can try in a future season. Like, this is your podcast. This is your podcast on drugs.
This is the podcast on drugs.
This is
right.
Any more comments about the Say No to Drugs video, or
no? I think we said, yeah.
Okay. So the next thing we watched was a 3 or 4 minute excerpt from the beginning of the rarest VHS cassette that I own. This is called Up Close with James Doohan, quote, Scotty, unquote, of Star Trek. It is an official release by Infinite Visions. It was produced in 1994. It's one of the most janky professional releases I have ever seen, but it does have, you can't, maybe we can make this into an Anno Mini. Maybe we can make like the beginnings of these into like YouTube things, but as you can see, the tape does have like a professionally done label.
Dan is holding it up to the camera so that I can see it, and now he's showing it to Elizabeth so she can see it. She looks very concerned.
Basically, I'm deeply concerned. Basically, you print the label, you design it in like Word or something. I don't know if they had Word back then, but like you print it onto sticker labels you can buy from like Staples. So I don't know how professional that is, but
well, compared to like, so VHS, the thing is that like they weren't super cheap, but they were cheap enough where anybody could access it and you could record directly to it. So like cheap and janky by VHS standards is like a whole other thing. It's sort of like, it's like saying the worst fast food fried fish sandwich. Like there's a lot of competition.
No, I just want fried fish. Oh my god.
Anyway, so it's I believe it only actually runs for 100 minutes, but it claims it's 120 minutes because they didn't bother getting a custom tape for it. So it's a 2 hour tape. And yeah, you get James Doohan. You get a private interview with him, and then a bunch of convention Q&A. You get some interviews with Trekkies outside this appearance by James Doohan. And James Doohan is wearing like the New Mexico or LSD equivalent of a Hawaiian button-down T-shirt, as you can see. Hopefully you can see on the corner here.
So now Dan is showing it to me, and Elizabeth cannot see it.
My face is just
Elizabeth is also looking at me.
It's so ridiculous. Oh my gosh. That's a pretty great shirt though. I would wear that.
Yeah, I would totally wear that. Yeah,
he looks
loves
awful
that
in it,
shirt.
but I would look better in it. So
And it also lists on the back, did you know that James Doohan, quote, invented the Klingon language, was a captain in the Royal Canadian Artillery, was wounded on D-Day, appeared in Star Trek The Next Generation, which apparently
No, I don't remember that.
that's what you follow D-Day with. Apparently starred in The Bold and the Beautiful, which is a long-running soap opera, is a skilled dialectician, has an honorary doctorate of engineering.
And he does mention in the interview, the part that we saw, that he used to read a lot of technical journals and is actually sort of responsible for a lot of the suddenly Scotty coming up with all this technical jargon.
Yeah, and I think this was what was the Next Generation movie where Shatner meets Picard? Generations. I think that came out in '94. That's probably what he was, because it says on the bottom is starring in Star Trek: The Next Generation motion picture.
Okay.
This must have been produced before Generations came out, so this might have been part of a press kit. Although it doesn't say anything about promotion on it.
Well, and it's very specific to him. Wait, a press kit.
Maybe he sold this at appearances.
Oh.
Right. There was like a ventriloquism act near where I grew up that used to do that. They would sell like a VHS tape of just them doing their show at Cafe Luna.
Oh, it's like when you've got street performers and they sell they're selling their CDs. No, why street performers? You go to a show and they're selling their stuff.
Right.
So you go see James Doohan and he's selling his stuff.
So Elizabeth has some feelings about James Doohan.
She has some very strong feelings.
Do you, Doohan?
I feel a little put on the spot here. I think I was still making drinks at that point.
She thinks.
No, remember how you say you're
that shirt.
Oh, well, well, the audience already knows that.
What else would you look better in? The Enterprise?
Space travel isn't really my thing.
Weren't you saying that James Doohan is your hall pass celebrity?
Oh yeah. In our relationship, like we each get one celebrity of the opposite sex that we can, and she chose James Doohan.
Yeah.
A.k.a. Scotty of Star Trek, the original series.
I thought I could trust you.
Is that why you got the DVD?
I thought that we could keep this between us.
No, I found this in like one of those things that looks like a giant garbage bin at the Goodwill sorting center with a bunch of other weird, like low production value Star Trek VHS stuff.
I just remember like the only thing that really struck me during like the 2 seconds I saw this was basically how much he was whining about how much success he had in his life and how everyone loved him. He just kept talking about how awful everything was, and I just thought that was hilarious.
Well, he basically blamed Star Trek for not letting him have an acting career ever again outside of like variations on Scotty.
Yeah, they said that he was typecast. Now he can't perform without doing a Scottish accent.
Right, because he doesn't actually have a Scottish accent.
Yeah.
And then we get to see some like fairly sad, vacant looking tracked footage from the early 90s.
Yeah, it's a really low rent convention.
It looks like, yeah, like a city center in like a suburban town or something.
It was It was interesting, but I don't know that I would have been able to sit through the full 120 minutes certainly, but even the full 100 minutes.
Yeah, it's a lot of Scotty.
Yeah.
So we only watched like 3 or 4 minutes of that. And then we watched
Now for the main feature.
the main feature, the thing you all came here for, Test Tube Babies, 1948. My copy says that it's 83 minutes, but when it plays, it's only 53 minutes, and every other copy we could find was 53 minutes. I'm going to make a bold presumption here and guess that the movie is actually only 53 minutes.
And it's actually a typo.
5 and 8 kind of look similar sometimes if you're not paying attention. I bet it was a typo at some point.
Well, yeah, I mean, I liked him. I like the character. And I like him as an actor. So both when he's young Scotty and older Scotty in the later movies, he's fun. But,
oh wait, are we still talking about Scotty?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I forgot. We moved on to Test Tube Babies.
Test Tube Babies. So what? Like, I kind of want to talk about this NPR special that I heard that's very much related to the movie, but I don't know if I should dive into that before we describe what it's about.
Because the movie half of it isn't about test tube babies.
Right. Well, half of it is trying to set up the sort of moral lesson that having a family is the only way that you're going to escape the moral bankruptcy of single life and childless life, the swinger parties and the drinking and the sensory excesses, are just gonna take over unless you just sit down and quickly pump out some babies. But yeah, it's weird. I mean, it's probably I feel like this is probably the worst movie I've ever seen.
Really?
Wow.
Probably. I mean, I don't know. I've definitely seen some bad movies, but this was so bad. The acting was so bad. I don't even know.
I thought the acting was great. The guy really convinced me that he couldn't have sex. Could you imagine that guy having sex? Even his wife was just work all the time just so long as I don't have to see your Stewart's hot dog wiener.
Oh my god.
Well, let's go to the plot, what little of it there is of the movie, so the folks at home can appreciate it. So far we know there's a husband and there's a wife and there's some swinging parties.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Or maybe
there's a lot of other husbands and wives. There's some drama between them for 10 minutes and then we never see them again. Any of them, it's super complicated for 10 minutes just so some lady can dance around naked in her living room.
Wrestle around naked. There's a difference.
Yeah, and it has
two half-naked women wrestling on the floor over some guy they both wanted to hook up with.
Yeah. So wait, so let's start off. So there's a couple. They get married. They're happy for a year, and then they start becoming unhappy in part with each other. The husband, what was the name? George. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I
mean, he's not distinctive enough to need a name. He's an NPC in his own movie.
He changes. He's angry and gruff for the first half of the movie, and then he's morose and forlorn for the second half of the movie.
That's what I call character development.
Yeah. He went from one way of having his face turned down, having a frown, to another way of having a frown. Turn that frown upside down.
Many things.
Turn that smile upside down.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh gosh, I don't know. Going through and explaining the plot of this feels so emotionally taxing.
It's so bad. It's like not even worth explaining.
Yeah. Okay, let's try this again.
Well, there's Frankie. Frankie's the guy who's like sleeping with everybody, who's probably the real father.
Okay, so there's a couple. They're fairly newly married, but after they're together for about a year or so, they're not quite happy. The wife wants a baby because it'll keep her busy during the day, basically. Husband sort of maybe wants one. It's not clear, but he doesn't like. They're both.
At one point, he basically says like, "We need to get you a baby so you'll shut up and be happy and let me like sit at my drawing desk." Like jerking off all day or whatever the hell he's doing.
You totally lost me there. Wait, what?
Well, there's like all those shots of him. He's like at a drafting table. We never see him do any drafting. He's just like,
oh yeah.
Home again, honey, because like I'm shooting blanks and like you find me physically and like
no
find me like sexless in every way.
We don't know about that yet. He's busy working at night. She ends up going to some party with one of their friends. He doesn't go, and then another time there's a party and the party's actually at their place, but George is at the office working, and that's when what Elizabeth was describing about the women rolling around naked on the or partially naked on the floor.
It's so interesting because like all of the movie up until that point is just like long drawn out, boring and terribly shot conversations. Yeah, just where they're just like talking for way longer than necessary about whether or not they want to have a family and like whether or not Frank is a threat to their marriage. And then like the most interesting scene in the movie is the party scene at their house.
Which has nothing to do with
anything and like could have been entirely cut out, honestly.
Yeah.
But again, they totally put it in there to be like,
yeah, but then you only have like a 40-minute movie.
Right.
Well, they put it in to be like, this is what could happen if you don't settle down and have a family. You could be like one of these people who gets like horrifically drunk and starts stripping and like pulling, playing cards out of women's boobs and,
The only thing keeping your husband's wiener away from other ladies is you pumping out children.
Yeah, so then they decide to have kids, but they're unable to. So they go to a doctor, and he examines them, and it turns out that George, the husband, is sterile. Is that the right word?
Sterile. Yeah.
Sterile. That is.
The doctor has like the worst haircut. He has like the same hair as the dude in Eraserhead, but if you took a lawnmower to the top of it, he has like the worst hair.
Like all of their hair looked the same to me.
But then we get a 15-minute lesson on artificial insemination, and they decide to have an artificial baby.
And the most interesting thing about it is that at that point in the movie, it like actually gets progressive, and we see like a very scientific, like not weird approach to like how like artificial insemination is like okay if that's what you want to do, and how it needs to be like a consensual decision reached by both parties. And like the husband like weirdly doesn't get angry at all when he finds out that he's sterile. Like he's like very accepting of it and like doesn't lash out at his wife. He's just like, what do you want to do, sweetheart? Let's figure this out together. It's just like so weird. It's like disorientingly progressive for what it is.
Yeah, he becomes really glum because he becomes really glum. It's as if, and he kind of says it as if he's, there's something wrong with him. He's incomplete. He can't produce,
I think there's a deep existential point in this movie.
Which is?
Right? Because like everything is about them overcoming their fear of having an artificial baby, but they're both such awful actors that if you combine their genes into like a baby actor person, let's call it a person, like a baby person.
Baby person.
Even if there wasn't the test tube involved, it would be an artificial child, just like an affect.
But like, what's interesting with that
like
is like
the moral is that we're all living in the Matrix.
Oh God, too far. But like, I don't know. I like what I found interesting about that is like, if we're taking this as like a moral, I mean, there's obviously like major glaring flaws, but also like the fact that they portrayed a man coping effectively with his sadness was like, I just felt like that was like, wow, good on them. Like he got sad and he was processing it, but he wasn't like turning to anger to deal with his sadness. He was just kind of like, oh, okay, like I have to deal with this now. But also they end up like, so yeah, they decide to like do artificial insemination and like have the baby that way. And then we find out later on that they've had like multiple babies that way. But the advice of the time is to not tell anybody. And that's what I think, this is where the NPR special that I listened to like about a year or so ago comes in. I don't know if we want to dive into that or not yet, but.
I think the test tube represents a wiener.
In what way? How so? Can you elaborate?
Well, like takes on the functions of the wiener, and it also has a rather phallic shape and is used to disperse liquids. I know sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, but I think the test tube in this movie is probably a wiener.
Why just in this movie?
Butthead.
Isn't that just a standard, what test tubes normally represent? A banana is never a banana. A cigar is never a cigar. A test tube is never a test tube. Or just a test tube. I love
sometimes a test tube is like the universal experience or sensation or response to, or like a way of evoking the universal sensation of having spilled something, right? Like it's always more exciting when people spill stuff out of a test tube than say like a glass of milk or something.
But, oh yeah. Well, there's a sense of danger associated with something spilling out of a test tube, because it could be some highly toxic or highly combustible chemical or solution. Whereas with milk, it's just going to make your mom yell at you for spilling it.
When I was a kid, I used to think a test tube baby meant they like literally grew it from scratch in a lab. I thought that it meant like, my friends thought that too, so we used to like, yeah, because I guess all that like Dolly the sheep stuff was coming out then, so I just assumed it was like kid from nothing, but I guess now it's just like somebody has to, there's like a guy in the dinosaur suit backstage who's jerking off into the test tube, and that's how it really works.
Wait, so Elizabeth, you were going to talk about an NPR show.
That was like, so basically about a year or so ago, I was listening to NPR because I was like driving. It's the only time I ever listened to the radio. Well, I think most people can relate to that.
Hopefully not. I mean, we are on a podcast.
Podcast is not the radio. But
listen to the radio at home.
Some people listen to the radio at home. But
it's not radio, it's a nominee.
APR, a nominee public radio.
Nominee public radio. So basically it was a special it was focusing on this one main story, but it ended up relating to other people's stories as well. A person in her like 40s or 50s decided to, for whatever reason, take an ancestry.com type test. And that's like pretty common nowadays. Like I think a lot of people like do that stuff out of curiosity. But she ended up finding out that I believe it was her father was not her real father, and she never knew this. Like she went through her entire life not knowing that her father wasn't her biological father, and her father was dead at that point. It was only her mother was still alive, and when she confronted her mother about it, she was kind of almost expecting her mother to like laugh it off and be like, oh, like that's like ridiculous. But her mother was like, well, they ended up having a conversation about it, and it was like really uncomfortable. And what was interesting is like I think she ended up doing more research, or maybe the interviewer ended up doing more research, but basically they started to realize that there's been like a lot, like, I don't know exactly what the percentage is. It's probably not actually that high compared to the general population of boomers, but like there's a pretty substantial percentage of boomers who like through like ancestry.com type things like have come to find out that they're like who they thought were biological relatives are not actually biological relatives, because this like artificial insemination was like a surprisingly common thing among, I think this is silent generation, I guess. But no one talked about it. You basically, so the practice was like, you couldn't have a baby, so you'd go and have a doctor take care of it, and no one would ever speak about it again. And I think that's really interesting. Like, it brings up some really interesting.
I find it surprising that no one ever would have heard about something called the silent generation.
Wait, what? That one went over my head.
Yeah, say that again.
I find it surprising that no one would have heard of something called the silent generation.
Oh, I get it. Like, oh my God.
Can we put in like a cymbal crash there?
No, it doesn't deserve it. But yeah, no, I just think it's like interesting. It brings up some really challenging ethical questions. I mean, I think the key takeaway here is that like I don't think it's right to. I don't think that people should feel ashamed. I think like the secrecy stemmed from a culture of shame surrounding this issue. And I don't think that people should feel ashamed of being sterile or not being able to have children of their own for whatever reason. And I think that like they kind of owe it to their kids, to be honest. Like there's nothing wrong with having like a not biological dad or whatever, or mom or whatever. But like, I don't know. I just feel like it's something that like people should know. But yeah, that's what I was thinking about when I was watching this movie. It's interesting to see an object of that exact period and culture that ended up kind of creating like such a huge phenomenon that impacted a lot of people's lives.
And there was, I agree with them that it was coming from a place of shame, but that was from the adult's perspective. And they never discuss the kids and the impact it might have on the kids and why you would want or wouldn't want to tell the kids about it. For various reasons. They didn't go into that, if I recall correctly.
Right. The children, like, it's not even considered like how. I mean, it's basically just like if they don't know, then it's not going to be an issue.
Right.
Which I think it's really fascinating, particularly that story about the woman going. I mean, can you imagine going through like a solid 50 years of your life thinking that your dad was your biological dad, and then suddenly feeling certain inconsistencies or like something was always not quite right, maybe, like we are just not quite, it just raises a lot of interesting questions. I can't imagine that.
Can you imagine being the dad and thinking what happens in my wiener stays in my wiener?
What happens if your wiener stays in your wiener?
No. What happens in my wiener stays in my wiener.
Oh, okay. But there's no partying or anything going on in there. It's very still and quiet, and there's only a few people. You've got this.
It's like a morgue in there.
Well, I mean, that's what it's actually like when you get to your hotel room in Vegas.
After you get to the hotel room, after everything that's been going on, or you're at the. I know. It's the really, really miserable old Vegas casino.
Atlantic City?
Oh, yeah, worse. Atlantic City. Yeah.
Right.
And a really old, decrepit casino for Atlantic City by Atlantic City standards. Wow, we're really going far with this metaphor of what goes on in George's penis.
Yeah, I was sure,
It's like an asymptote that never reaches the womb.
So this movie was about 25 minutes of a educational film and about 25 minutes of exploitation film and 3 minutes.
It's like a minute of titles.
A minute of titles. Oh, and the scroll at the beginning and the end.
Kind of like Star Wars. That's another movie I would say is similar to this movie.
Oh my God.
It does involve people.
I'm sorry. I just had another thought though. I'm just like still stuck on this. Like, not even just like the personal, like familial connections involved, but like medical history. Like when you think about like genetic predispositions towards certain things, diseases, life-threatening illnesses, or even just mild conditions, like, can you imagine like not being honest with your child about that stuff, like that just blows my mind. Because like one of the major things, like every time you go to the doctor, it's like there's a huge consideration given to like family history, like what kind of things run in the family, and what's the likelihood of that showing up down the line. I was just like the moral like dilemma here is just it just continues.
I wonder what Ben Shapiro would think of this movie, given his whole like public issue with his wife's DAP.
Wait, I'm thinking about a different Shapiro. Never mind. I thought you were making fun of me for NPR stuff.
No.
Different Shapiro.
That's a different. No. I'm talking about the guy that was complaining about the WAP video.
Oh my God. He's bored, is what it is. He's bored. Got nothing better to do but pick on
Cardi B and pump out test tube babies.
That video, I have to say though, was so horny. Oh my God.
With his wife's DAP.
Like, it's like you can't even talk about it. It's just like, oh my.
Well, no. There's like a way to tell it's a wet A word, P word.
But you weren't watching the video. You were on the other side of the room when we were watching that. You didn't.
Well, I just remember you like saying like, "Oh my God, did she just say gushy?"
Well, that was the clean version. We accidentally watched the
That sounds so much dirtier.
Yeah.
Sounds gross. It doesn't sound sexy. It just sounds gross.
Well,
have you seen it, Ron?
I've not seen the whole video yet. I saw Ben Shapiro read the lines first.
You have to watch the video. It's like, borderline, like, I don't know. I don't want to say pornographic, but there's like some kinky moments.
Okay, I've got it. Do you mind if I pause to go watch it right now? So
yeah, right. I'll be right back. Give me like 15 minutes.
Yeah. Let me get out of full screen mode. I'll get out of full screen mode, and I will put the video on the left side of the screen while you're on the right, so I can watch it in real time and comment on it.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, yeah.
So I feel like the movie kind of hit home for me personally because of struggles that Elizabeth and I have been having, artificially conceiving a cat to join us in the apartment.
Oh my God.
I'm shooting blanks as far as cat sperm goes, so we're really gonna have to trust medical science on this one.
Well, I've got a cat you can borrow. Oh wait, no, he's neutered. Can you unneuter a cat?
I don't know if God has enough Barry White CDs to do that, Rod.
To unneuter a cat?
Mm-hmm.
Can you reattach his testicles? No. What is neutering actually?
It's
So I always just think of it as removing the testicles.
It's part of the international conspiracy.
That's what it is. If you're talking about a male cat.
Yeah. Oh, that is all it is?
Yeah.
Right. I always think like, no, my understanding of it is I don't understand how it works. It's actually much more complicated than that. Or I don't understand the reproductive system. So.
Well, no, because it's like, okay, so that's the hormonal element right there, and that's the place where anything of meaning would happen. So.
The professional term amongst veterinarians is junk clipping.
Junk clipping?
Yeah, neutering is just the way that we plebs refer to it.
The way that you what? Flips?
Us plebs.
Oh, plebs. Oh, okay. Oh, darn. I thought I had a TIL moment there. Flips are blank. And I'm glad that there isn't one because it sounds racist.
But yeah, so they have a bunch of kids, and I think that's what they needed because like somebody else needed to come save this movie from them, their dull ass problems, their boring lives, and their like lack of interest in each other.
And like in the last scene, like there's a fake, like a baby doll. Like they're like two real kids, and then the baby that she's holding is a doll. And I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, it reminded me of the end of that. Did you ever see Guys and Dolls? That like I think it was a Channel 4 BBC documentary about guys that like live with these $6,000 realistic sex dolls. We should watch that. It's like amazing, but
yeah. Wow, that sounds cool. I mean, when you say Guys and Dolls, I think of
The musical, right?
the boat.
Oh,
By the way, flip is a slur. It's a racist term for Filipino.
Oh gosh.
Clip?
Flip, FLIP.
Oh, I said junk clipper.
Yeah. I got it afterward.
Oh.
I missed it. Yeah. You were saying clips, and I heard flips. So yeah, this was a bad movie. Yeah, this was bad. But Elizabeth, there's a whole genre. There's a whole bunch of these kinds of movies. If you want to see this might very well not be the worst. In fact, it probably isn't.
I have seen worse movies than this,
I
I can list them here if anyone wants.
I think I need to take a break from. I mean, honestly, watching a bad movie is kind of disappointing. It's like, wow, I just spent like an hour and a half of my life watching something that was just like, I mean.
Well, you only spent 53 minutes, so that 53, says it
okay.
all.
That's better. That makes me
felt like
maybe the back of the DVD case meant that it feels like 83 minutes.
Yeah.
But that's why it's important to like, you have to treat it like a cultural object and think about what sorts of values or trends or like ideologies it was reflecting of the time period or what it was trying to inform the viewers, like that's the interesting part about it, I
think that's giving it too much credit.
I mean,
this is about like,
then why spend the time watching it?
People who are dead now because they made a really crappy movie.
They've been memorialized.
That seems mean. I don't want to be mean. Like they didn't do any. They're just bad actors. Like they're probably really great at something else.
Yeah, this just
not being in that movie, which they did for the rest of their lives, except for those fateful few months.
I have to say, the guy who played the drunkard at the party, I actually thought that he was halfway decent at what he was doing. Like his drunk acting was definitely way over the top, but he was compelling in a way that like no one else in the movie was.
Well, okay, here's reasons to watch some of these. So I watched, my friend and I were, Matt, who's on the show a few months ago. He and I have been watching, in quarantine, been watching Marilyn Monroe movies. Every single Marilyn Monroe movie. And one of them is called Dangerous Years. It's a film that she's in early on. She's very young. And it's a very small supporting role. And it's a bad juvenile delinquency movie called Dangerous Years. But we get to see Marilyn Monroe in an early role. And and she speaks and everything.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So there might be something in the movie, a throwaway movie. Wow, that sounds sacrilegious. But a throwaway movie, or what otherwise would be a throwaway movie, but no, this one can't be thrown into the trash bin because it's got Marilyn Monroe in it.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's like yeah. I mean, John Cassavetes was in some god awful movies. The worst movie he was ever in was probably called Devil's Angels. It's from 1967. It's a Roger Corman movie about a bike gang that was literally shot for whatever it cost to rent the motorcycles for like a week. There was a point where all of them ransack a grocery store, and Cassavetes, who's clearly like completely drunk throughout the entire movie, just screams, "We're dudes," is like their justification for it's just so bad. That's definitely one of the worst. That's a worse movie than this. Monuments Men with George Clooney, that was a worse movie than either of those.
It wasn't that bad.
Oh my god, I hated that movie.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Maybe I was the only person who had that strong a reaction to that movie when I saw it in the theater. But
I was very disappointed because I was really looking forward to it. But I was probably more disappointed than you, but I probably didn't think it was as bad as you do. Elizabeth was just making faces at me. Her famous face.
Yes.
Her famous tooth face.
Oh, so we have a question for Elizabeth, because we went through our YouTube numbers and it turns out that 2 of our highest ranked episodes are the ones that Elizabeth is on. So we wanted to ask you what is the secret sauce that you bring to attract the ratings?
My womanliness.
Your womanliness? Oh, that's sexist. Is that the only thing you bring? The female voice, female intuition, fair sex?
Kidding. I have no idea. Maybe it's more entertaining when there's more personalities bouncing around off of each other.
Yeah, maybe. Although, but people have to. How do people find out about that?
I don't know, but for whatever reason, yeah,
I don't
two of
know.
our top-rated episodes are ones that Elizabeth is on.
I would guess that it's a fluke.
Well, we'll have to see if Test Tube Babies
Takes
gets to the
off.
top of Spotify.
I mean, okay, but it's also like, how can you really objectively evaluate that? Because anything with the title Test Tube Babies is automatically going to spark like additional curiosity.
Right.
Like, maybe it's just like I have a knack for like figuring out what's going to be the most interesting episode. I'm like, that sounds like an interesting movie. I'll watch that.
It's a Mill Creek budget release, which Mill Creek is like the lowest of the low end DVD manufacturers, although they give you a lot for your money.
Greta Garbo. Okay, you know what we really need to watch here is Joyless Street, because it has Greta Garbo in it, who's, I believe, this one. I was gonna say, like, the front cover of the Cult Classics DVD has, I think, a picture of Greta Garbo on it, but I didn't put two and two together at first, and I was just thinking, like, this is a very 30s look. It's like pencil thin eyebrows and the dark mouth, you know, like very in the 30s.
Yeah.
The giant eyes, you know, they kind of look like.
Well, we should watch. I mean, if we should watch that one, we should watch Chained for Life. Siamese twins working as a
25.
vaudeville singing act face trouble when one of them is accused of murder. 1951. Child Bride, set in the Ozarks, a school teacher leads an effort to stop the practice of underage girls marrying older men.
That sounds
1938.
great.
So what Dan's reading is this DVD actually has, it's a collection of 20 movies, all in public domain, right?
I would presume, yeah.
Um,
And they're in pretty terrible quality, but if you're just watching them on like a laptop or something, I mean, it's not like more pixels is going to make these movies any good.
or projected on a blanket outdoors.
She should have said no. A chorus girl loses a lot in her life when she meets a pusher who introduces her to marijuana. 1949.
So then we watched an episode of the Super Friends, which we haven't watched for a very long time.
We're savoring them, and we watched one of the early years where there was actual money put into the production. Let me find the name of the Fairy Tales of Doom. We watched Challenge of the Super Friends, Season 1, Episode 13, Fairy Tales of Doom.
Which was pretty bad.
It was very disjointed.
Yeah, it wasn't, maybe it wasn't especially bad for Super Friends.
Yeah, by Super Friends standards, I would say it was average, but Super Friends standards are like what got America to the point it's at right now.
Yeah, do you want to describe the plot briefly?
Yeah, so the Legion of Doom comes up with a ray that can shoot people into books of fairy tales, some of which are misshelved, shall we say, in the episode. And if they can't get out of the book somehow, which the only way to get out is with the magical ray thingy, then they're stuck in the fairy tale book indefinitely forever.
Yeah.
And so we get another episode. I mean, it feels like the Super Friends, they really like separating the main superheroes. Like each one gets their own mini adventure. There's not a lot of like group combat or action that you ever see in these cartoons.
Right. It's usually, it focuses focuses primarily on one, with the rest as background. But even then, it's not all of them as background. There'll be like three.
Right.
It'll be three at about working at approximately the same.
We can only afford 3 Super Friends this episode.
But you can never afford more than 3 at a time.
So how does Elizabeth feel about the Super Friends?
I feel like I'm not in a place to offer anything of value to this conversation, as I did not watch it.
Oh, you didn't watch it? Okay, I thought you were out there with us. Okay.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, so one of the
Wait, hold on. You thought I was out there with you.
Well,
You did not realize that I left the porch.
baby, I kind of feel like you're with me a little bit always.
Oh my god.
That's what I
This is
really
like
meant
the
by that.
TikTok I saw yesterday where a woman literally shaved off her eyebrows and her husband couldn't figure out what had changed about her face.
So, Super Friends.
Super Friends, yeah, there's not a whole lot to talk about. There's kind of like their crappy take on the Duck Amuck classic Bob Clampett Looney Tunes cartoon where Daffy Duck gets sent in and out of various classic books. We get to see Superman in Gulliver's Travels, which is not a fairy tale. Whatever, he's being beat up by Lilliputians. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because we never really sense that Superman is in any kind of danger whatsoever.
No, he is. They're pelting him with little bits of kryptonite.
Oh, okay. So like he's in like uninteresting danger.
Right.
It's like that episode of The Tick where he gets hit in the head and he's being like whacked with fish by tiny versions of himself with wings on their head. What are the other one that's like, I remember.
There's Jack and the Beanstalk.
Right.
And wait, they did 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. No, they started off with that, but they didn't actually have any of the superheroes go into it. Yeah, what was the third one? It really made an impression. This whole episode made an impression on me. I don't have kids, but I'm going to have kids just so that I can then have grandchildren, so that I can tell them about the time that I watched the Fairy Tale of Doom episode in the first season of Super Friends.
That's really the only reason to reproduce in this day and age.
Yeah. And I'm going to buy a house with a lawn so that I can make my kids mow the lawn.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah, well I think Test Tube
Child
Babies,
labor.
it's like a one-sided movie because it goes into like the terror of not having a child, but it doesn't go into the terror that comes with having children.
Which is far, far worse.
Far, far worse. Take it from me, I was a child once.
I wasn't. Not that I can recall.
You just showed up like this?
Yeah, fully formed.
Oh, you
Ready
could like
for the
Lady
world.
Gaga, right when she released that like album with a picture of her like fully grown, but it says on the front she was born that way,
Right.
and you just like feel really bad for her mother because she looks like she's like pretty big.
Baby, I was born red.
I was a 95-pound baby.
I was a 310-pound baby. Now I'm a 160-pound adult.
I'm a 200-pound baby.
You're a what?
I'm a 200-pound baby.
Yeah.
Pure muscle, pure baby. For anyone listening at home, I'm like flexing my guns right now, just in case you can't see it. Like,
Oh man, look at those.
the
Look at
recording.
those. How much do you press? What do you bench
Oh
press?
man, I press like everything. I press my pants, I press sandwiches. You know, the key is to just keep doing it until you're good at it.
A
And
lot of buttons.
a lot of buttons. You know, every once in a while I press Elizabeth.
For those of you at home, Dan is actually pressing, by which I mean pushing Elizabeth.
I can press an entire Elizabeth.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I should know. I certainly couldn't press me.
Oh, well, it looks like our pod guest is about to fall asleep. So
It's past my bedtime.
No, I just remembered. I used to bench press. Actually, I think, Dan, I could bench press at least your weight.
my way, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Holy crap.
Yeah. There was a period in which I was actually exercising. And the bench press was my favorite. Because
Really?
I think the closest I ever came to that was I slept on a bench once.
you weren't even facing in the right direction. You were face down.
No.
I was doing oh my god, I was doing this like workout earlier that was like all arms and core, and with the little like stretchy thingy.
So where is the core? Is there like a part of us with seeds in the middle?
From here to here.
Oh, so like the middle?
Basically, yeah, your middle. Everything from fucking here to your butt, basically.
And does it have any relation to the cores that one commonly finds in pints of Ben & Jerry's ice cream?
I
America
mean,
needs to know.
depends on if you want your core frozen or melty. I don't know. I mean, it's your preference. Both are good,
Is
you
your
know.
core ice cold?
Do you want your core ice cold or you want your core
Is
like
your
a little?
core like measured in Kelvin?
I don't know.
Nobody knows what Kelvin is.
Yeah,
I know what Kelvin is.
science.
Kelvin is a measurement of temperature. It starts at absolute 0.
Right.
So I think, what is it? 0 degrees Celsius is 273 Kelvin or something like that. Or did I get it right? Dan.
Oh,
Get it right.
yeah, that sounds good to me.
0 Celsius is 273 Kelvin, because 0 Kelvin is
Away.
absolute.
Did you ever see that TV show where the cavemen are frozen and they wake up in the future and they like become really good at basketball?
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah, it was called Kelvin and Hoops.
Oh, I get it. We've needed the rim shot app like an awful lot in this episode.
I'm just doing like the Johnny Carson golf swing every 2 seconds here.
Yeah, so that's going on, and it just unfortunately the golf swing doesn't make a sound.
Nope.
We can't see that.
It just means we need to take over the Tonight Show. That's what that means.
Yeah. Johnny Carson hasn't been involved with the Tonight Show in a little while.
Oh yeah, but like the Tonight Show now has like only slightly better production value than we do because of the pandemic. Like,
oh yeah, that's fair.
Like it's my living room versus Stephen Colbert's living room. And I honestly feel like I have a cooler living room than Stephen Colbert does. And I'm also ignoring every other factor that differentiates our two shows.
Like, he's not using Zoom. He's using something else.
Is he not using Zoom?
Zoom? Oh, okay.
Oh, it seems like he could be.
Yeah, no, maybe he is. Like cameras. All right. Is there anything, any not a recap of the episode, a cap of the episode? What's any last thoughts?
Well, apparently the very prospect of having a test tube baby has caused Elizabeth to faint, so I'm going to have to sign off for her here now.
Okay.
So I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Dan.
And I'm Ron.
And this has been a Nominee Questionable Movies. We'll see y'all here next week.
All right. Take care, everyone.